Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, and history's weirdest coincidences defy explanation. Two identical twins were separated at birth in 1940 and eventually adopted by different families. The twins grew up unaware of each other's existence, yet they lived almost identical lives. Both were named James by their adoptive parents, and both had childhood dogs named Toy. But that's just the beginning. Both Jameses married women named Linda, and scarily enough, both got divorced and remarried women named Betty. Both had sons named Alan, just with different spellings. And if that wasn't enough, both worked as sheriffs and drove Chevrolets. The twins eventually met in 1979 when they were 39 years old. Their reunion sparked interest among psychologists and geneticists, leading to studies on the influence of genetics and environment on human behavior. Their story goes to show that truth is stranger than fiction. In 1999, a man attempted to steal a woman's purse outside a Walmart in Kansas. During the struggle, the woman fell and scraped her knees, escalating the crime to aggravated robbery. An eyewitness identified the robber as a man he had met before named Rick. Authorities went through booking photos in the district and identified the suspect. Despite Rick having a strong alibi, he was sentenced to 19 years in prison. It wasn't until his 17th year behind bars that the Innocence Project tracked down the actual robber. It turned out that the wrong Rick was arrested. The real culprit was his doppelganger who lived in the same area. Rick was finally proven innocent 17 years later and was awarded a $1.1 million settlement by the state of Kansas.
Not only amazed at their resemblance, but they also have the same legal name.
Once I seen his picture beside mine and I seen the resemblance that me and him had, I just knew, that it was understandable why, other people said the same thing.
Baron Trump is the protagonist of a series of novels by Ingersoll Lockwood, written in the late 1800s. In the first novel, Baron Trump is introduced as a wealthy young boy who lives in a building called Trump Castle and is guided by a mentor named Don. People were quick to point out the similarities to Donald Trump, who has a son named Barron, and the iconic Trump Tower. But the coincidences don't stop there. Later in the series, in a novel titled The Last President, there's a storyline about a political outsider from New York City who unexpectedly becomes president. While some claim that these books are proof of time travel or a simulation glitch, most people see these novels as simply a strange case of life imitating art. As if ancient Egypt and the pyramids weren't enough of a fascination for scientists, a set of mysterious hieroglyphs found in the Temple of Seti sparked debates and fueled wild theories. Known as the helicopter hieroglyphs, these carvings left many wondering if ancient Egyptians had a glimpse into the future. How else could a civilization from over 3,000 years ago have knowledge of what modern vehicles look like, such as a helicopter, a submarine, and even an airplane? Surprisingly, it turns out it's just one of those crazy coincidences. Egyptologists suggest that the shapes are likely the result of an ancient tradition, where new carvings were made on top of old ones after a reign ended. Over time, due to erosion, partial erasure of older carvings happened, leaving behind these shapes that look so similar to modern objects. But some people don't buy this explanation. So whether you're a skeptic or a believer, the helicopter hieroglyphs serve as a captivating example of how the ancient and modern worlds can collide in the most unexpected ways. Jennifer Bricker is an American acrobat who was born in 1987 with no legs. Her parents faced a tough decision and made the choice to put her up for adoption as soon as she was born. From an early age, Jennifer knew she wanted to be a gymnast and idolized American Olympian Dominique Moussinot. At the age of 16, she discovered that her idol was actually her biological sister after looking at her adoption documents. Determined to connect with her newfound sibling, Jennifer sent Dominique a letter.
And I received this letter from somebody who I didn't know at the time, who told me that she shared the same DNA. She proceeded to have a document that showed my parents' handwriting on it, which was the adoption papers. And then there were photographs, and the photographs looked exactly like my youngest sister, Christina. They looked like twins. So by all of the evidence that she had placed in that letter, I knew she was for real.
A few years ago, a picture went viral of a 19th century photo of a girl who looks eerily similar to environmental activist Greta Thunberg. The picture was taken in 1898 at a gold mine on Dominion Creek. Greta Thunberg is not the only public figure with a weird coincidence from the past, with Michael Jackson having resemblance to an ancient Egyptian statue housed in the Field Museum in Chicago, as well as with a painting from the 1600s. When a local news team in Maine was getting ready to do a report on a missing person in hopes for someone to identify them, someone eerily similar to the missing person walked in the background, and you can see the reporter's gears kicking in.
Yeah.
The crew ended up calling the police, who confirmed it was indeed the missing man. and everyone was relieved.
A happy ending right now. The gentleman behind us you're looking at, that is Robert McDonald.
Two of America's most iconic presidents, John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln, had some bizarrely similar aspects of their lives and deaths. Let's start with the basics. Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846 and Kennedy in 1946, exactly 100 years apart. Both were succeeded by Southern vice presidents named Johnson, who were born exactly 100 years apart. To make things even stranger, both presidents were deeply involved in civil rights issues and were tragically assassinated on a Friday. Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater, while Kennedy was shot in a Ford Lincoln car. The eerie connections extend to their assassins as well. John Wilkes Booth shot Lincoln in a theater and fled to a warehouse, while Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy from a warehouse and fled to a theater. These coincidences have sparked endless debates and theories. Since one cannot pass on an acquired characteristic to their offspring, such as a nose job, this has to be one of the strangest coincidences out there. A man took to Reddit to share that his dad's index tip was cut off when he was 10 years old, and his own index finger stopped growing as the same length of his dad's. While some people pointed out that it could be an epigenetic inheritance, the consensus is that it's most likely just a coincidence. Now let's quickfire some strange coincidences. A 3,500-year-old coffin unearthed in Egypt a few days ago that features a carving of a woman resembling Marge Simpson from The Simpsons. While dragonfly tattoos are a popular choice, it's not every day that one decides to land on you, especially when you already have a tattoo of one. If there's one time to be annoyed at a truck right in front of you on a no passing zone, it's this one. Okay, this might be able to be explained if there was a hair coloring discount somewhere in the area. A man who accidentally left a picture of the default phone screen on his device couldn't believe his eyes during a trip to Italy when he stumbled upon a landscape that seemed a little too familiar. Violet Jessup was a ship nurse who's often considered one of the luckiest unlucky people alive. She survived a trilogy of maritime mayhem that seems almost impossible. She was aboard the Titanic as a stewardess when it struck an iceberg and sank, but just a few years later, while serving as a nurse on the Titanic's sister ship, the Britannic, the ship struck a mine and sank in the Aegean Sea. Violet survived by leaping into the water, sustaining only minor injuries. But that still wasn't the end of Violet's maritime adventures. She was also on board the RMS Olympic when it collided with a British warship. Violet Jessup's story proves that lightning can indeed strike twice. Even though part of this story was lost in the details, perhaps the scariest coincidence of all time happened with the opening of the tomb of Timur, one of the most powerful emperors in history. Timur was a 14th century conqueror whose empire stretched across Asia and has fascinated historians for centuries. Fast forward to 1941, when Joseph Stalin sent Soviet anthropologists on an expedition to open the tomb to confirm it was indeed the ruler. Along with Russian anthropologists, many members of different Central Asian intelligentsia were present, leading to various recollections of what happened. However, the core message remained the same. There was a manuscript, either found in the tomb or handed to someone before opening it, that warned, "Whoever opens this tomb will unleash an invader worse than me." Less than a week after the tomb was opened, Adolf Hitler launched his invasion of the Soviet Union. Despite this being just a coincidence, when word of the curse reached Stalin, Timur was reburied. In a strange literary prophecy, a book titled Futility was released by Morgan Robertson in 1898, 14 years before the tragic sinking of the Titanic. The similarities between Robertson's fictional story and the real-life Titanic are so striking, one might think he had a crystal ball. In the book, the ship named Titan is described as the largest vessel ever built and deemed unsinkable by its creator. Just like the Titanic, the Titan was on its maiden voyage across the North Atlantic when it struck an iceberg and sank. And just like in real life, the fictional Titan had an insufficient number of lifeboats. The eerie parallels don't stop there. Both ships were roughly the same size, 800 feet for the Titan versus 882.5 feet for the Titanic, and both could reach speeds over 20 knots. But perhaps the most chilling similarity is that in the story, the Titan sank in April, just like the RMS Titanic. Soon after the Titanic's sinking, people credited Robertson with precognition. He denied this, and scholars attribute the similarities to Robertson's extensive knowledge of shipbuilding. Mark Twain is one of America's greatest literary figures, best known for novels like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But what many don't know about the author is that he shared a remarkable connection with a celestial phenomenon. On the day Mark Twain was born, Halley's Comet made a once-in-75 years appearance in the night sky. Upon learning of this rare cosmic alignment, Twain famously predicted his own death in 1909, stating, "I came in with Halley's Comet at 1835, and I expect to go out with it." True to his word, Mark Twain passed away on April 21, 1910, just one day after Halley's Comet returned. This uncanny timing sealed his legacy not only as a master of words, but also as a man whose life and death were mysteriously linked to the movements of the cosmos.